Hi folks, it's Zach, and welcome back to my Star Wars tips and tricks section. And today we are talking about Knights of the Eternal Throne and getting ready to prep for the changes that are coming as that new expansion arrives. The first and probably the biggest change that'll immediately affect you that you can prep for right now is the eradication of Data Crystals and Commendations from the game. So, if you guys have been playing thus far, then you've probably earned up quite a few different types of data crystals and possibly some Warzone commendations if you also do PvP, and you've used those to either purchase gear, companion gifts. There's a lot of different things out there that you can buy. Anyway, at the end of November of 2016, the devs have stated that those are going away, and what they will do at the end of the month is reimburse you for specific amounts for how many commendations you have, and they're using a conversion table. The key here though, guys, is that there is a cap to how many credits that their commendations will be converted into, and that cap sets at 2 million. So even if you have enough commendations that due to the conversion rate you would get, say, 10 million credits, the most you can get from conversion is 2 million. This is really important, guys, because that means no matter how much hard work you've actually put into your commendations, you may not get the full value out of them unless you maybe make some judicious choices right now. If you're okay with just getting 2 million credits for those commendations, look no further. Great. You can skip ahead to further in the video. But if you do want some recommendations on what you could do, why don't you keep going? My first recommendation is to go ahead and look at spending on companion gifts. If credits really aren't your thing and you make credits very easily, then I would highly recommend buffing up your companions. Here's why. In KOTET, they're going to change the way that the story missions happen, that you can now repeat them. And as you repeat them, you can also change their difficulty level to get better rewards. Now, if most of you guys have played through Knights of the Fallen Empire and Knights of the Eternal Throne, you'll have a companion by your side as you do most of these chapters. Therefore, buffing up those companions actually isn't such a bad idea, especially if there's companions you would like to use a lot. Some of the chapters lock you into specific companions, but we'll talk about that in a sec. My top 3 recommendations for companion gifts, if you are looking to spend, is to pick one melee, one ranged, and one something slightly more universal. My favorite 3 gifts for this purpose are cultural artifacts, military gear, and underworld goods. Most of the companions you're going to get for Knights of the Fallen Empire will use one of those 3 gifts to go ahead and get buffed up. If you're using Lana Beniko, she likes cultural artifacts. So does, if you're a Jedi or Force user, people like Kira Carson. So that gift works for a couple different characters, and all of those characters are typically melee types. If you use military gear, there's a bunch of different guys who really like military gear, but my favorite is by far and away HK51 or HK55. Both of them are range typed, and they like military gear a lot. The reason I also picked Underworld Good is because regardless of which character class you're coming into Knights of the Fallen Empire with, there was probably somebody in that crew who really loved Underworld Goods. There's almost always a scoundrel type for every crew set. And as you go into Knights of the Fallen Empire, that still carries over. If they liked it before, they probably like it now as one of their main, companion gifts. So I do recommend those 3. Now you can use whatever you like, guys. This is completely up to you. If you have a companion and their favorite gift is technology, you always like to have your droid next to you, whatever, then build towards that. But if you're just looking to spend in a hurry and you're not really sure what you want to spend it on, or you're watching this video close to the end of November, then I would recommend, if you can't think of anything else, those are 3 really, really safe bets. Now, if you're like me up to this point, you probably haven't spent too much on companion gifts unless you're also crafting, so this is a really good opportunity to do so. There's going to be a whole new tier of crafting that's going to come out in the new expansion, and you may want to craft some things for yourself, and having buffed up companions helps you a little bit through PvE, but it can also help you a lot through crafting. And now a tiny warning. Obviously, if you are looking to purchase the best gifts in the game, you're going to go to Silas Fleet Flyer on Odessen, and there's a very long list of companion gifts you can get there. But there's also a few very, very high-grade materials for crafting. I would actually recommend against purchasing any of those materials. This is up to you, but here's why. Typically, right before an expansion comes out, people try to unload all of their highest quality crafting mats to people who will buy them and try to craft things without really knowing when all these things are going away. Therefore, you're going to see a bottoming out of the prices on a lot of these goods. You may not actually get a whole lot of credits for them. My recommendation is that unless you know for sure that you can sell this item for a good profit that you're comfortable with, I wouldn't buy it. Okay, that's exotope stabilizers, everything else that you see there that's a crafting mat. I would just say if you can't sell it and move it at a good price, then I would just stick to companion gifts for that. Okay, now if companion gifts aren't really your thing, there are a few other options that you have on ways that you can spend those commendations now that may pay off bigger dividends later. One of the first ones is going ahead and picking up any random pieces of gear that you're looking for in the form of modifications for, say, a leveling set. So here, for example, is a level 60 vendor, but I mean this is basically the same for any of the vendors that you see on the fleet who sell modifications for commendations. They may still be on the fleet later on, but then all of these items will now cost credits instead of commendations. That's if these things stay and it doesn't go back in the hands of crafters. I think that's probably a pretty safe bet that they'll still be around, but there's no guarantee that the price that they'll be in Knights of the Eternal Throne will be something you want to pay. So if you are looking to put in some value to those commendations, you may want to consider going ahead and purchasing commendations that you can use, and I will show you how. Okay, so if you were following my guides during the Dark vs. Light event, then you already have the entire Victorious Pioneers armor set, which is a really good armor set for leveling up with. But if you don't have that armor set, and you do have some spare legacy gear around, what you may consider doing for yourself right now is going ahead and putting together some really cheap legacy gear sets that you can use while you level. The advantage to this is that this way you can spend commendations now on, say, an enhancement, a modification, an armoring. You can throw that into a legacy piece of gear, throw that into your legacy vault, and then you have an entire gear set that you can use for any character that you ever decide to level up. I like to do these in particular intervals depending on when I got those commendations, but you can set them up for regular intervals for yourself, whatever you feel comfortable with, and then you have, like I said, leveling sets to use on any character ever. So anytime you decide to level up a character, you can use that. So if you did not partake in the Dark vs. Light event, or you're getting into it so late that you can't actually finish the objectives in time to get a full Victorious Pioneers armor set, which gives you, if you have all the pieces, a 50% experience bonus as you level, then a good alternative is just to have really good gear for the different levels that you level up with. Do you need it? Not so much if you're doing tactical flashpoints the entire leveling process. Is it nice to have? Sure. We never know what changes BioWare is going to make in any particular expansion, so better safe than sorry. So if you are looking for a way to spend up some of those commendations, that is an avenue you can take. You can go ahead and purchase commendations, throw them in legacy gear, and then you have legacy sets of gear that you can go ahead and use to level up with. Last but not least, I would say if your companions are all set, you have all the pieces of gear that you want as far as commendations, then go ahead and take a look at actual rating gear that's for sale for the different commendation vendors. If there is a particular look that you like on a piece of gear and you would like to have it on that character, then I would go ahead and say buy it. This is pretty much going to be your last chance for that particular raid set, as far as I know, because new raid gear will be coming out in the new expansion. Right here you can see one of my Jedi, and he has the old Kalumi gear. This was one of the original raiding gear sets that came out when the game first launched. You can't get this anymore. This is just not something that's available. I'm so glad I got it when I did and still have it on this particular character, because no other character that I own has this particular setup. So there is always that to keep in the back of your brain too. If you don't want to spend on companion gear or gifts, if you don't want to spend on commendations, don't want to spend commendations on modifications, then this would be a really good alternative. If there's a piece of raiding gear out there that you like the look of, go ahead and swoop it up, because this might be the last time you get a chance to see it. Okay, so you're asking yourself if you've bought everything that you could buy, if you've already checked all your gear, and you say, alright, I'm good, I've got everything I need to do, what else can I do before the end of November of 2016 to get ready for this changeover? I would say definitely make sure that you finish up any mission that you have in your logs that give very, very good rewards of something that's about to get hard to get or go away. Number one with a bullet would be the Shroud of Memory. The Shroud of Memory is available to almost anybody who had a subscription during the right time and gives you 100 common data crystals, a whopping chunk of glowing data crystals, and 10 of the really high grade technology companion gifts. That's a ton. That's a lot of reward for a very, very short quest and not a lot of intensity to it. This is something that you can do very easily. I would do that on every character that you possibly can. Get those benefits in before that possibly disappears at the end of the month. Last but not least, if you have anybody who still has the Shadow of Revan finishing quest, I actually don't have a character who does, but one of the rewards you get from that are 3 large boxes of common data crystals. That's about 297 data crystals that you'll just reap the benefit of if you could just cross that finish line. I would highly recommend that. Go ahead and finish it up on any character that you have that has that, and the same thing with any other quest that gives something similar, although off the top of my brain I can't really think of any other quest that gives quite that many common data crystals, but this is the time to get that done. Get it done before the end of November 2016 so you can get those common data crystals now and spend those now before the end of the month when it disappears forever. Alright guys, last but not least, there's one other option for you guys that I want to throw out at you, and that is the GTN. So, for your commendations, if you go ahead and spend, say, your commendations on something like a cultural artifact, one of the really nice legendary grade versions of it. Right now they go for about 74,000 credits on my server. But now let's think ahead a little bit. If you're looking to be industrious, and you know that these are going to become a lot more rare in Knights of the Eternal Throne, it might behoove you to buy a bunch now, not actually use them, and just save them until they get really expensive. The way these things typically work, as far as the economy, is that people buy a lot right now, then they kind of flood the market with it if they're looking for cash, if they already have a ton of them. So we might see the price drop for a little bit, but then over the course of time, as they get harder and harder to get, the price is going to go way back up. That is a really good time to sell. So if you guys are looking for a worthy investment of using some of those commendations for it, keep that in the back of your brain. This could be a way to also make some really nice cash later on down the road. So if you didn't buy gear, you didn't buy modifications, but you did buy a bunch of companion gifts, you just didn't want to use them on your companions, this might be a really good way to go. Anyway guys, that's all I've got for you today. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.